Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be checking out Batman Superman: The World's Finest issue 30 by Mark Waid and Gleb Melnikov. Mark Waid takes a brief break from absolute power to chronicle Batman and Superman's first ever team up with Wonder Woman, beginning with Batman, Robin and Superman being summoned to Themyscira, which is a pretty big deal being that no man is allowed to set foot on the island. I love what Waid does here where as soon as they arrive, Superman, respecting the island's rules of no man must step foot on her, decides to just kind of float around and not actually step foot on the island. He does eventually walk on the ground, but only after they have been kind of formally welcomed onto the island and have begun their mission. It's little things like that that really make me love Waid's Superman. He remembers all these like little things, like of course he would do this. He's, a respectful man. He's, was brought up as a farm boy. Of course he's going to respect people and their, customs and different traditions. And that's so damn cool. I really like when Waid does that with his characters. He adds that little bit extra humanity to them. Upon meeting Diana and Hippolyta, they learn a murder has been committed on the island, and Diana wants her friends to help solve it. A one-off murder is nothing, but as Diana reveals when she shows them the victim, it won't be the last, as the Amazon who died, Diotrine, was marked on the forehead with a Roman numerical 1, signaling that there's probably going to be more deaths. The team get to work going over the clues, learning that the rest of the Amazons have been gathered together by Hippolyta. However, most are becoming angered that they have reached out to men for help. The island is kind of becoming a bit of a powder keg because of it, and has put a timer on the heroes finding out who did this before something terrible happens to the Amazons. Waid really stresses the fact that Wonder Woman calling her friends was a very last resort. It's sort of, break glass in case of emergency sort of thing. And I really like that her and her reasoning for bringing Batman and Superman in, apart from, Batman being the world's greatest detective and Superman having superpowers that could allow him to detect things at a microscopic level, is that she wanted fresh eyes who aren't used to their customs, hoping that from their unique male viewpoint, maybe a new motive will become clear. Continuing the investigation, Diana tells them that Magala, a woman bound to stay inside the Well of Souls, is still at the Well of Souls and not with the rest of the Amazons, and Batman doesn't want to rule her out, sending Superman and Robin to go and talk with the woman. Waid doesn't shy away from using Amazonian lore this issue, actually focusing on it quite greatly with the Well of Souls, which reincarnates women who are killed violently in man's world into the Themyscirian Sisterhood. Magala is what's called a midwife who is there to sort of shepherd them into this new life of theirs, and I think that's kind of a cool role. I'm sure there's probably backstory and lore that I'm not too familiar with. Wonder Woman is one of those characters whose origins and backstories and traditions and all that stuff are always, up in the air. Everything always means different some other week of the year. So I'm familiar with the Well of Souls, but not the people around it, and I'd love to see more of this character and more of like this sort of tradition of people being reincarnated as Amazons. That's really damn cool. Soon, Robin and Superman are put on the trail of someone as they find Magala has been attacked, learning someone was being reborn, but a monster rose from the well instead and hit her before escaping. Batman meanwhile finds himself stumped by the murder, something that doesn't happen at all really, and he tries many trial and error approaches, including even using the lasso of truth on Diana herself, only to really rule herself out as not the killer. And we find out that magic might be at play here, magic that does seemingly affect Wonder Woman, but it's unable to be detected by the lasso. Since he can't find any new evidence, Batman comes to a pretty cool conclusion that there was no murder at all. And it turns out he was right, as Diotrine springs to life, now turned into a strange monster being with eyes in the palms of her hands. As Superman and Robin learn that the Well of Souls is actually connected to the depths of Tartarus, the woman Wonder Woman and Batman have found was never actually Diotrine, and was not actually Diotrine at all, as Diotrine never actually existed. It was actually Apate, the god of trickery, who freed herself and her brother Dolos from Tartarus, and while every Amazonian was dealing with a supposed murder and looking in her direction, her brother was stealing the secret flame of Prometheus, something that the Themyscirians were protecting. I'm very excited for Wonder Woman-centric villains to get the spotlight and and using the Goddess of Trickery and the Duke of Deception, who's actually been a character since the second issue of Wonder Woman. He's been a character for a very long time, so it's very cool to see him come back here. These are great choices, as we see when Superman confronts Dolos, and thanks to the flame in his possession, he can make his what would be illusions come to life, and he turns Superman into Clark Kent, wanting to reveal Superman's deepest secret, and of course it's that he's Clark Kent. He then also assaults Batman with the bats, as Batman is terrified of bats. Again, really cool things drawing on from these characters' mythos, Batman using his fear against the villains, and now it's being used back against him. Waid has really had a lot of fun with magical reality warping, into multiversal dimensional beings as of late. The last few arcs have all been about them, and he shows no sign of ending that, and really those are the kind of best villains for these heroes. They're better than, the ones that are dark mirrors of the heroes or guys in power armor. They're a lot more varied and creative, and there's a bit more variety a writer and an artist can do with these types of characters. And Gleb Melnikov, who jumps in for Dan Mora for this arc, showcases that very well. Obviously having a lot of fun drawing the Trinity together battling these magical villains, but I really like how he draws Wonder Woman, and it's such a little thing, and sometimes writers really seem to forget this, but I love that he draws Wonder Woman taller than the other two guys. I really appreciate that. It's just such a little thing, but yeah, of course she would be like an 8-foot tall Amazonian woman. It makes total sense. So Dolos and Aparte seem to be unbeatable with the Flame of Prometheus in their possession, even stopping Wonder Woman's lasso, but they soon make a fatal mistake as they decide to test how much truth Wonder Woman has in herself. But she isn't the only one gripping the lasso, and the combined truths of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman push the magical flame back and destroy the flame for good. This is what I was saying before about magical reality warping villains being so much fun to use, since you get fun creative ways to defeat them. You don't just have to punch them, or you just can't punch them. You have to come up with a creative way to beat them, and I like that this is a really creative way that their combined truths, or their drive to always find the truth in what they do, wins the day. Robin also sorta helps by bringing in the cavalry with an army of Amazonians, but kind of arrives at the tail end of the battle in like the second last page, and I really don't think he was needed at all for this issue. I can understand why they brought him around. This is, when this book takes place is like the era of Batman and Robin, so it would make sense for Robin to be there. And of course the Robin is Dick, so it's always really fun seeing him as Robin again, but he could have just stayed back at the Batcave. You could have just said like, oh, Robin's back at the Batcave, getting ready to run tests on things that we can't do out in the field or something while we investigate this murder case. Just something like that. He really wasn't needed in this story at all. With the threat dealt with, Batman, Robin, and Superman get ready to leave the island, having earned the respect of Hippolyta, the Amazonians, and in a lovely ending page, even the extra respect of Wonder Woman, who wishes to count them as her forever comrades in arms. There's some great little bits here in this final page that Waid develops with Bruce, Diana, and Clark's relationship, since this is, their first, real mission together. So this is the first time they've sort of like been together, had that dynamic with each other, and I like that right off the gate, we see them sort of wanting to, we'll catch up for coffee, we'll go out for lunch, we'll do all this sort of stuff outside of being superheroes. So they want to develop their relationship as friends. And Waid's done this quite a number of times. Like, obviously the biggest one is with Kingdom Come and the characters in that when they get to meet up at Planet Krypton and all that sort of stuff. And I love when heroes do that, when they meet with each other outside of work, quote unquote. It's just a lot of fun. It makes it feel a bit more natural and a bit more like these are just human characters. These are real people. They're not just superhero costumes. With Waid also doing a big Justice League story coming up with the first appearance of the Justice League in this series of books, I hope we get to see a bit more of that as well as the team grows and the characters become more involved in each other's lives. It's just really fun stuff. Mark Waid delivered a fantastic Wonder Woman-centric one-and-done story for World's Finest issue 30. Obviously having a lot of fun digging into Wonder Woman's lore and using her villains as the main threat. As someone who thinks her villains are criminally underutilized and underrated, I thoroughly enjoyed Waid's take on Aparte and Dolos. I am going to give this issue a 9 out of 10.